Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune, and it's off season, but yet there's still a lot going on. You have basketball, you got softball starting up, you got baseball starting to practice, you have recruiting junior days last week, this weekend, you have National Signing Day coming up that will have nothing to do with the University of Oklahoma because they're completely done, but 2025 is heated up. Oklahoma is making moves on a lot of top targets. We're here to discuss some of that. We're here to discuss basketball. We're here to discuss a plethora of Oklahoma stuff and who's standing out early on in the first 2-3 weeks of off-season strength and conditioning and the workouts. We have that for you right here on the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. All right, Parker, we got an ad you need to get to.
Well, we actually don't have any ads. I do want to take this opportunity, though, to remind everyone to download the Autograph app. There is a custom link and a promo code in the description, whether you are listening to the podcast on a streaming platform or watching on YouTube. There is a custom link and a promo code in the description. You need it to download the Autograph app. It is not publicly available, so you got to go through that link. But once you do download it, it opens the door to an Oklahoma community that gives you the chance to get rewarded as a fan. Autograph was co-founded by Tom Brady, has a ton of cool perks that you can get just by interacting with content. It's completely free. You'll see OU Insider content on there. You will see content from some of your other favorites in the Oklahoma market. Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman have the Oklahoma Breakdown on that app. You can check out all of the KREF programming, the Home of Sooner fans, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day. There's obviously live Sooner talk, and a multiplicity of other platforms feature their content there on the Autograph app. So it really is your one-stop shop for all of your favorite reporters and insiders and broadcasters here in the Oklahoma market. It's all there in the Oklahoma community on the Autograph app. So go ahead, give that a download. The one asterisk, the one caveat is that if you're an OUinsider.com member, a VIP, well, you're not going to be able to read paywalled content via Autograph. So you'll still have to come to OU Insider. And believe me, if you've been paying attention and you are a member this week, there's been a crap ton of paywalled content, ton of member exclusive recruiting intel, exclusive interviews. It's been a very, very busy week with not just stuff from me and Brandon, but from Blake Mullen, from Brian Clinton, from Jesse and Brody on the basketball side. We keep it hopping day in and day out.
Yep, I got some notes coming. I've been trying to space some of this stuff out this week. We have some notes coming on 2025 4-star edge CJ Nixon, who was at Oklahoma this past weekend. I think you're gonna like what I have to say about that.
Ooh.
So I might be putting in a future cast here.
Do it, Brandon. Take the plunge.
I might.
Drop the future cast.
He is a great kid. He is a fantastic basketball player. Has offers from several G5 programs in the basketball side of things, but also like Georgia. Like Georgia was just out seeing him on Tuesday when he played Weatherford played Kingfisher at Kingfisher. I believe he's visiting Kansas this weekend. And the reason he's going to Kansas is because they're hosting Houston. And he's never been to the Allen. He's never been to Fog. And 2 top 5 teams going at it in the Fog on a Saturday evening. He's really excited about that. But, I mean, I would have went too. I would love to have gone to that game. That would be a bucket list game right there with those 2 elite programs going after it. But as far as how things are going with him, obviously I said I'm close to putting a future cast in. I think that tells you everything you need to know, generalization of it. I'll dive more into that on OU Insider VIP, but I thought the most interesting thing he said to me was probably the funniest thing he said, and I don't think anybody And Parker, you're gonna find this funny. This is it. He said, "Coach V is chill and relaxed. Coach Venables is chill and relaxed."
Can confirm.
And I said, "Huh?
I said can confirm.
Venables is chill and relaxed. That is nothing.
As a recruiter, yes.
No, I've never heard that. Here's what I said. I looked at him kind of cross-eyed when he said that because I've never heard that phrase for Venables ever from anybody. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, man, he's like real chill. I said, in comparison to what? He goes, well, when you're in the same room with Coach Chavis, you're chill and relaxed compared to. I said, okay, well, that's fair. But like saying Venables is chill and relaxed, like that is the most type A, wound tight personality you could possibly be is Coach Venables. But I guess when Chavis is in the same room, yeah, I can see that. They're both very, very high energy guys.
Yeah, Chavis is just extra. We know that, right? And I think this is what makes a great head coach, though, in particular, is that you know who notoriously was very good at this was Jimbo Fisher, where he could just like put on a completely different face and persona when he interacted with recruits. And I think there's a little bit of that just kind of naturally baked into the pie with Venables, just because when he's out on the recruiting trail, he's in a different frame of mind than he is when he's actively coaching. Right. And so, man, the returns have been really, really good, and having conversations with some of these guys that the Oklahoma staff has been out to see over the last few weeks, not just once, but multiple times. In some cases, they've made multiple trips up to New Jersey to go see Cole Breeler. They've made multiple trips out to DC to go see Trent Wilson. The staff has made a number of trips, not only here in state, not only down in Texas, but down in Florida as well. Florida and Georgia, they've spent a lot of time in. And so it's been a crucial couple of weeks. I would say most of all for Zach Alley, just because he is the guy that nobody knows yet. And there may be players regionally down there in Alabama, Georgia, Florida that have some familiarity with Alley, but he's still the new guy on the block as far as the Oklahoma staff is concerned. And so, especially with these blue chip guys, high end targets for the Sooners, pretty much everybody is going to be at least vaguely familiar with obviously Venables and Chavis, Bates, Brandon Hall, the staffers that Jay Valai as well, the guys that are out there, out and about on the trail quite a bit, checking in with not only targets that fall within their scope of influence as position coaches, not only guys that would play in their room, but guys at other positions as well. So, but like I said, I think there is a lot of familiarity, generally speaking, with the recognizable faces on the OU staff. And there's obviously Venables, and Chavis is probably, just because of his personality, second fiddle to Venables in that regard. But for Alley, it's been a really good opportunity, and there have been pictures posted from recruits in Texas, in Georgia, in Florida, in the Carolinas. He's been out and about frequently over these last few weeks, and it's been a good opportunity for him to kind of put the windbreaker on, as it were, put the OU hat on, and emphasize that he is now part of this operation. And when you see Zach Alley's face, when you think Oklahoma, you think Zach Alley, in addition to thinking Venables, Miguel Chavis, etc.
Say what? What'd you say?
Oh, did I drop out there for a second?
Yeah, you said, yeah, I think you did, because you like paused and I started talking, and then you said something. I don't hear what you said.
My internet might have crapped out. That's what happens when you podcast over Zoom, folks. You're not immune from technical difficulties. But yeah, like I was saying, I think it's been a good opportunity for Alley to get his face out there and build some rapport and build some recognizability with these recruits, such that when they think Oklahoma, they don't only think Brent Venables, Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, DeMarco Murray, the recognizable faces, right? Jay Valai, but they also think Zach Alley.
And I think one of the things that with Zach Alley, he's come in and been really aggressive, obviously throwing out a lot of offers in 25, 26. even in 27. I mean, they're not holding back on that. You're talking about guys that are going into their sophomore season of high school, and 27s haven't been, there hasn't been a ton of offers thrown out with those classes, but there's been enough that it's noticeable. Number one, number two, the 26, like they have really like I bet you there have been 30 offers plus just in 26 over the last 10 days.
And they're still making 25 offers too.
Yeah, and they're still
Like,
that's what my point is. Like they're aggressive across the board in all three of those classes.
Well, and especially to think, Brandon, like they're very obviously putting the heat on some of these guys, because you look at that edge room, right? Oklahoma's recruiting for 3 spots. We've known that for some time. Alex Shield Knight is the one commit in that group right now at Oklahoma. And obviously the Sooners feel very, very good about where they sit, not only with CJ Nixon, but with Max Granville as well from down in the Houston area. And yet last week, 11 days ago, Miguel Chavis is throwing out an offer to another fast riser from down in the Houston area in Smith Orogbo, who's going to be on campus as one of the junior day visitors this weekend. So the Sooners, I think the staff's playing this the right way in that they're not taking anything for granted. They're not overextending themselves in the 2025 class in terms of who they build relationships with and who they prioritize, but they're keeping options open such that if something falls through, if something goes haywire, there's going to be an instant recourse that you can fall back upon.
Yeah, and again, I've said this over and over on not just the lives, but the podcast that, I don't foresee Oklahoma really doing a type C type of, as far as defensive line goes. I don't think they're going to attack it as, all right, you missed A, you missed B, let's go for C in 2025. I think you miss on your A and B targets, and I want people to know that there's multiple A and B targets, right? You got Kamari Moore already committed, and he's going to move up in the rankings, number one. Number two, they feel like they've got that one spot filled. So now they can start being, number one, picky as far as where they go from there. But when I say they're going to move on, so let's say the type A or the A position type players that they've offered, right? I think you would throw Cole Breiler in there. You throw Trenton Wilson in that category as far as interior defensive linemen. You miss on them, you may go with some B guys, right? And then if you miss on your B guys, I think you just go to the portal. Because I do not think that there are a lot of options in this class as far as how deep the defensive line class is. And the reason I say that is because, Parker, 2026 in the Oklahoma and Texas region is deep.
It looks good. It looks good on the defensive line.
You got an interior guy already in Taj Overton. He's going to be in town this weekend. So you've got that. And I just, the East Texas defensive line is really thick in 2026, and I think so is DFW. So when you look at that, you don't really have to go, okay, if we miss out here, we've got to go to this guy, but we don't really think this guy's fits us, but we're going to make him fill in a spot here just to fill in a spot. You don't need to do that anymore. Oklahoma's not there anymore on defensive line. So one, you can be picky because you've recruited so well and portaled so well there. And I want people to understand that because I don't know what's going to happen as far as 25 in defensive line. Kamari Moore can be the only defensive tackle they land at the end of the day. Like there's a world where that's true in 25 as far as high school. But I wouldn't freak out because if we've learned anything from Bates and if we've learned anything from Venables, they've got a plan.
Yeah.
And the plan has worked.
And I think, And I think if you can land 2 out of 3, you already have Kamari Moore on board. So I guess at
Yep.
this point, if you can go 1 for 2 with Cole Breeler and Trent Wilson,
Yep.
I think you're in great shape
I do
because
too.
I love Kamari Moore, man. I think he is so criminally underrated. All that kid does is dominate and disrupt. And, in talking
Jaden
with,
Jackson.
yeah, in talking with Brian Clinton as well, the man who amongst uh, the 5, 6 of us on staff at OU Insider, he's probably the one that does the most film study. He is in love with Cole Breeler. I mean, and like the tape objectively is pretty good. Like it's solid tape, it's blue chip tape. But when you hear a guy like Brian say it, Brian's got an eye for these types of things. It's what makes him such a valuable member of our team at OUinsider.com. And so when Brian is willing to stamp a kid that emphatically, it carries some weight in my mind. And so I think if you can land Breeler or Trent Wilson, who is, as of right now, the number 11 defensive tackle in the nation per the national scouting team at Rivals, yeah, that's a win for Todd Bates.
100%. As far as just, I think there's a world where, and maybe I'm crazy here. I think there's a world where Taj Overton is a Sooner at, maybe by the end of the summer. And if you can pull Taj Overton that early, I think that is a huge win for Oklahoma moving forward. Huge win. And I say that because I think he's going to be in the 4-star range probably is going to be a 4-star actually, whenever the 26 classes really start to ramp up as far as rankings go. And I think he's potential top 250 guy. So look, let's dive into the second junior day. There's some interesting visitors, I guess you could
Yeah.
say.
Can we start with the biggest one?
Go for it.
I mean, the biggest one, and by the time anybody hears this podcast, because I doubt anybody's going to be listening at midnight when
Linkon
it
Cure.
hits the distribution channels. By the time anybody hears this podcast, I'm guessing I will be en route to Holcomb, Kansas to check in with Linkon Cure, the 4-star tight end from Goodland, Kansas, up there in the very northwest corner of the state. He is essentially going straight from his basketball game in Holcomb tomorrow down to Oklahoma for his very first campus visit. And this has been a back and forth deal all week. He was coming, and then, or at least I heard from the OUN they expected him on campus, and then I checked with him, and he said, no, I'm planning on doing 7-on-7 stuff this week, and then checked back in with the OU people. They said, yeah, don't feel great about that. Then I guess there was a conversation on Tuesday night, and they talked him into coming after all. And I was not really sure until today whether or not he was going to make it one way or the other, because it was just a constant, one side says this, other side says this. And the kid, for his part, didn't really seem to have everything lined up in terms of what his concrete plans for the weekend were. And then our national director of recruiting at Rivals, Adam Gorney, came in with the hammer and confirmed earlier, as we sit here recording this on Thursday night, he confirmed Thursday afternoon that Cure will be in Norman. If you have listened to this podcast, if you have paid any attention to our recruiting content over at OUinsider.com, I think it's pretty well understood that this is my man crush in the 2025 cycle. This is the kid that, above all else, I think Oklahoma needs to throw the kitchen sink at. Whatever that means, whatever you feel like you have to arrange for him or provide for him or give to him in order to make sure he's a Sooner, man, that's an alien. That is an absolute alien on the gridiron. And just for kicks, I was sitting in my home office earlier today, and I was watching his junior film. And basically swapping back and forth, watching plays from his junior film and watching plays from Mark Andrews' senior film, because that's the comparison everyone has made, Brandon, the Mark Andrews comparison. And I don't know, man. Like, you can pick your poison. They're both obviously studs. I think Linkon Cure's junior film is more impressive than Mark Andrews' senior film back in 2013 down in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, Linkon Cure right now, per the folks at Rivals, is the number 66 player in the nation, the number 5 tight end. In the industry composite, I want to say he's like number 37 overall or something. I am willing to project that this kid is a 5-star and a consensus 5-star by the end of the cycle, because they just don't make him like him. So this is a very, very crucial visit weekend as far as Linkon Cure is concerned. It's going to be his first trip to Norman, going to be his first impression of all things that constitute the University of Oklahoma experience. And you'd have to think that if they're rolling out the red carpet for anybody this weekend, it's that guy.
Yeah, look, he's one of the best naturally gifted flex tight ends I've seen in a while, particularly in this region. The Mark Andrews comparison gets thrown out so much because he has the ability to put on weight like Mark did when he got to campus. Because remember, Mark Andrews showed up, he was like 225. He redshirts and had to be coerced into being a tight end. And then next thing you know, he's 245, 250. And his sophomore year, he was good enough that everybody started to think this guy's got a chance to be really special. His last season on campus, he was just next level, All-American. Obviously, he won the tight end, the Joe Mackey award and all that stuff. So for tight end of the year, he I think Cure has that ability. I do. I think he has that potential. So
I mentioned it on the live stream last night, but
yeah.
I was having a conversation with the source in the Switzer Center last week and just asked kind of out of the blue, hey, what are your thoughts on Linkon Cure? Without missing a beat, that individual said he's a future NFL player. Easily. He's got an NFL player written
I don't
all
think
over
that's
him.
that seems like obvious.
He said he's
right?
a Pro Bowler. He's a stud, not just at the collegiate level, but at the professional level. It is so easy to fall in love with that kid when you flip on the tape. And yeah, barring injury, I don't think there's any way that kid is not a high round draft pick one day, because that level of athleticism, and it's not just speed with him, right? He's a crisp route runner. He's got crazy vertical jumping ability, which makes his catch radius for a guy that's 6'6" absolutely enormous. And so again, there are not that many pass catchers, not only in the 2025 class, but just in the nation, regardless of age or classification. There are not that many human beings that are as dominant as Linkon Cure on the football field as a pass catcher. And so, yeah, that to me, he is the guy that has to be the number one priority this week. And they're going to have some good players on campus, right? They're going to have a bunch of guys that they're going to want to make to feel the love. But yeah, Cure's got to be the guy that you throw the kitchen sink at, because he can drastically impact the effectiveness of your offense in the SEC by virtue of his size and versatility.
Did you notice that as far as the visitors that we have confirmed, that it is very much offensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive end, linebacker? That is what looks to be the main targets on campus this week for the Sooners' second junior day. Obviously, and I think March 9th is going to be the other big day that everybody is going to look at and say, because it's the Future Freak Day. That's where 25, 26, 27 guys show up, and Oklahoma looks to really put the the press on to get not just potential commits lined up, but official visits lined up. And I think you're going to see some of that this weekend as well, because you saw some of that last week where Oklahoma got official visits set up with several big name targets. Um, I the the thing that stands out to me, and I kind of want your thoughts here. You know, we've talked about Oklahoma and their linebackers, right? Um, who they could potentially be going after at linebacker, whether it's Christian Jones, whether it's Jaden Harmon, which we both think is just an absolute freak, Kamar Archie, who's obviously the teammate of Cole Breeler, the defensive lineman out of Hun Academy in Princeton, New Jersey. Uh, they've been after several guys at linebacker, but I think there's a player that we don't talk a lot about that I think Oklahoma is in one, not just a good spot for, but it fits with what he fits with how Venables does things, because Venables really likes Kansas guys and he recruits Kansas really, really well. So Dawson Merritt, you've probably talked to him more than I have. What's your overall thinking on him? He's going to be in town this weekend. He's the number 129 overall player, I believe, on 24/7. He's a top 250 kid
Yeah.
on Rivals. I think he may be a top 150 on Rivals as
Yeah.
well.
Big fan of Dawson Merritt. Love his game. He's got a great football pedigree. His dad, Dave, is an assistant coach for the Chiefs and a former player himself. You flip on the tape. Yep, that is a certified blue chipper. No question about it. Now, the sense I've gotten in Dawson Merritt's recruitment is Oregon hasn't offered yet, but that's one he's kind of waiting on. And with Dan Lanning's ties to the area, that makes sense, right? Like, so I think if and when Oregon gets involved, they're going to be a heavy contender. For the moment, the four schools that are kind of pacing the field for Dawson Merritt are, well, get this, it's an original Big 12 battle. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas. Those are the four.
Shocker. And if you're Dawson Merritt, you look at that and linebackers, Brent Venables, right? Zach Alley. And they've produced. You have Danny Stutzman sitting right there. You have Kip Lewis. You have Kobe McKenzie, Jaron Kanik, like four guys that you think are going to be NFL guys in the future, right? And that's not even Lewis Carter when you talk about that. Like, talk about linebackers, Samuel Mosigo, like they're what they've done at the linebacker position in the last two cycles is one, rejuvenate it. And look, McCullough, Deshaun McCullough, he doesn't get talked about as much as you would think for everything that he did, being a freshman All-American at Indiana, shows up, starts at the cheetah position. Obviously, he gets hurt at Oklahoma. But before he got hurt, he was making plays. I think him playing the cheetah position, the one thing he has problems with right now, and I don't think I'm stating anything that anybody else hasn't stated. He struggles covering the pass in space. Like, that is his problem. Pass coverage in space. Problem for Deshaun McCullough, which makes it a problem at the cheetah position, which is why you see, a lot of rotation there. And it's more rotation due to, down in distance, due to situation. Kendall Dolby comes in. He's going to do a lot of the pass coverages. And so if Deshaun McCullough can round out his game, he's an NFL guy. And I still think he probably is at the end of the day. I don't know. I think if you're Oklahoma, there's a world where you play him at will and see what he can do. I mean, he's big enough, right? Like he's not exactly what is he, 225, right? McCullough, give
Yeah,
or
I guess
take.
so. I guess so. He's right about in that range.
If he could get
230.
230, if he could get around 230, 235, I think it's within the realm of possibility of him playing that position. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm crazy. Um, Another guy that, and you brought him up. I thought, you know, I'm trying to find it here real quick. He's a fast riser right now. Oklahoma's been down to see him a couple of times out of the Houston area. He's coming up. He's an edge rusher. Smith the Rockbow, really, really long.
Yeah.
He needs to put on some weight. Obviously, he's only about 215, 220 pounds right now at 6'5". He's twitchy as hell, man.
He
Like,
is. He's
I
like,
mean,
and yeah,
wow.
this isn't intended as a dig at him necessarily, but he's almost like a poor man's PJ, you know? Like everything that PJ Adibawara was and is, Smith Rogbo is kind of cut from that same cloth, just
Yeah.
a little he's less freaky, which everybody is less freaky than PJ. So again,
Yeah.
not a knock on the kid, but has a lot of those same tools and traits. He has absolutely blown up the last couple of weeks. I want to say he's got 14, 15 new offers in the last 10 days. So somebody that Power 5 program after Power 5 program is throwing their proverbial hat in the ring for.
Yeah. So I was watching another recruiting video, and Cooper Patanga got in there, and they were talking about PJ Adebawara, and they were re-ranking or talking about the expectation for the 2023 five stars, what they did in 2023, but the expectation moving in 24. And obviously number 9 was PJ, number 10 was Peyton, and I think number 11 was PJ, or was Jackson, excuse me. So it was like boom, 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 Oklahoma guys. So it interested me when I saw it. So I'm watching it, and both he and Andrew Ivins go, if I was going to buy stock in any of the five stars right now, it would be PJ Adebawara. And it, did I say that right? Adebawara?
Adibawara.
Adebawara. There we go. Adebawara. I'm never going to get it right. Just PJ. Um, just butchering that name over and over. That is the hardest name to say. But yeah, so they were talking about, like, I'm buying stock in that guy. He played 184, I believe, snaps. I don't think they talked about that part, but they talked about he was one of the most played freshmen, and he played a ton in big moments for Oklahoma last year. And they said, well, I went back and watched the tape, and he's just flashing. He's getting so close to making that sack. He only had 1 or 2 sacks last year, but he was close to like 5 or 6 others. And so that's the guy, because he's, instead of getting close, he's going to end up nailing those, and he's going to go from 1 or 2 sacks as a freshman to 9, 10, 11 sacks as a sophomore. If he can add some weight, continue to just stay freaky, he needs to get a little bit more fluid in the hips, and that's not them talking, that's me talking. He's a little stiff in the hips sometimes, as far as being able to dip and get around the offensive tackle and turn in space, and that's fine. That all, doing a little yoga, working on just stretching the ligaments out and everything like that. That is a thing that can just very easily be taken care of for him. And yoga is a big deal. Oklahoma has a lot of their guys doing yoga outside of their strength and conditioning, because if you're a guy that naturally, as you lift, you get tighter and stiffer, you don't want that. So you need to go do the yogas of the world. You need to go do things that will help, re-stretch those ligaments, that isn't counterproductive on your strength and conditioning. So they have some of those guys do that. I wouldn't be shocked if PJ is one of those guys that does that. But uh, if he can just be a little bit more concise with his pass rush, as twitchy as he is off the line, as freaky as he is off the line. PJ is going to be that dude. And then if you can add another guy like him, like Smith Arogbo, if you can add another guy like him, you know who he reminded me of? Like you say, poor man's PJ. He reminds me of By Job. That's who he reminds me of. By Job was twitchy. He wasn't, and he's a freak athlete, just like Smith Arogbo. Super freaky. Same height, too, like around 6'4, 6'5, same weight, 215, 220 as a junior, right? Going up into your senior year. A lot of similarities there as far as their height, weight. I could, and then blowing up as well between your junior and senior year. So I could see, I see a lot of similarities there because to me, PJ's always been on another stratosphere than everybody else as far as just how freaky he is off the line and everything that he does. I Oklahoma has been really, really diving into Georgia. And leave it up to Miguel Chavis to try to reel in Warner Robins High School Isaiah Gibson to come down for an unofficial visit. Another defensive end, another edge guy that is 6'5", but he's already got some meat on him. So like he's a guy that if you look at his frame, if he's 280 pounds, 290 pounds by the time he's a junior in college, not going to be shocking at all. Not at all with how thick Isaiah Gibson is. Have you watched him?
I've not watched Isaiah Gibson yet. No.
I think he's going to be one of those Bothroyd, Jalen Redmond type guys that can slide inside and outside. He's just a big dude, man. And again, Oklahoma diving into that Georgia, the Peach State. Eventually, they're going to land somebody that's that's going to shock everybody across the nation. And when that happens, the floodgates, I think, are going to open. You're going to start seeing more and more Georgia boys end up in Norman. The longer Oklahoma's in the SEC, I think it's almost inevitable to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Cooper Perry, wide receiver out of Scottsdale, Arizona, Notre Dame Prep Academy.
Yeah.
He will also be in town. He's the number 81 overall player, according to Rivals.
181.
181. That's what I meant. Excuse me. 181. I said, yep. 6'2", 190 pounds. There's been some talk with him in Oklahoma kind of being in a decent spot with him. Again, there's only one more wide receiver spot. So that's where the issues abound there. It's first come, first serve. Where do you think he is on the pecking order of wide receiver? Because I think he's Oklahoma's going to take his commitment, right?
Sure.
But where do you think it's not like, and I want to preface this too, like, I'm not saying like when I ask this question, where does he stand like on their board? Because I don't know. I'm saying like, as in who's closer to committing as far as wide receivers. Like,
okay.
Do you think he's up there A, B, C, D? Like, where would you put him?
Okay. So the other three names, the other three guys right now that could very feasibly end up taking that fourth spot are Manny Choice,
Yep,
Andrew Marsh, and Caleb Cunningham.
Yep.
The thing is, I don't really feel like any of those guys are that close.
I agree.
And so that's why I feel like, of course, I say that, and I almost kind of feel like somebody's going to surprise us. And maybe it is Cooper Perry, man. Maybe it is. I think Oklahoma has the inside track with Manny Choice. That's just not a battle that I think is going to be decided now or next week or even next month. Still think there's a ways to go with all those guys. I don't think they get Caleb Cunningham. I just don't. I have a hard time selling myself on that. Think Andrew Marsh is a legit possibility, but as far as that last spot at wide receiver, am I forgetting anybody, by the way? Is there anybody that is in play that I'm not thinking about? That if I had to pick right now, I would say Manny Choice for that fourth spot. But I will say, in having a conversation with Cooper Perry earlier this week, this is kind of a strained comparison here, but almost catch some James Nesta vibes with that kid. In that when James Nesta showed up to Oklahoma, it wasn't really the expectation that he was going to commit on the spot, but when he
Royal
did,
Capel would be the other guy, I guess.
Royal Capel, there you go, and he's going
to
be
in
town
town.
too. Yeah. Yep. But like when Nesta did commit on the spot, it wasn't all that much of a shock because he kind of knew what he was looking for. He knew Oklahoma kind of checked the boxes for him. And I got some of those same vibes in talking to Cooper Perry. Just he's impressed with Oklahoma as a program. He's impressed with Emmett Jones. He's not going to dilly-dally with the decision. And he understands the prestige and the tradition that comes with playing wide receiver at a place like Oklahoma. And he also told me straight up, I know I can succeed at Oklahoma. I know I can make an impact there. So would it shock me if Cooper Perry ended up in this class? No, not at all. I mean, I have to acknowledge that at this point, because he hasn't visited yet, I'm kind of just throwing darts. But I do think Oklahoma is a legit sleeper in that race.
Yeah. I gotta go with Choice. I mean, I still think Choice is gonna beat everybody to the punch. I don't know why. I have that gut feeling. I think Oklahoma fans, if you were, force them to answer, they'd be like Caleb Cunningham, just because 5-star, right? Everybody in the 5-star is the biggest deal. But when you look at what Oklahoma's brought in at wide receiver already, I don't really believe you have to sit there and go, that's what they need. They need another 5-star at wide receiver. That'd be great. But I think Elijah Thomas is going to end up being a top 75 overall player in the country when it's all said and done. You talk about a guy that is a freak. That is a freak. I'm a big, big Elijah Thomas fan when it comes to Oklahoma and what they've done at wide receiver. I obviously like Jaden Nickens as well, who is transferring to Douglas. So that's always, Millwood Douglas don't get along already. That's going to make that rivalry a lot more heated. A lot more heated. Marcus, I want to talk about this. Marcus Wimberly out of Arkansas, and he's not ranked yet. I think he's going to be a high 3-star, fringe 4-star safety when it's all said and done. He's out Boite, Arkansas. And he's gotten an Oklahoma offer. He's competing for spots now with Jonah Williams, Marion Robinson, Matai. I'll let you say the last name.
Tagawai.
By
the way, it's Bauxite, Arkansas.
Bauxite, Arkansas. Whatever. Bauxite. It's spelled Boite. It spells the X is silent.
Well, if you're going to go the French route with the pronunciation, yes.
Which is what it looks like is what they were trying to do, but I don't know, man. That's why I pronounced it the way I did. Bauxite. And you would think my wife being from Arkansas would know that, but I'd never heard of that town ever.
It's right outside of Bentonville, isn't it?
Never heard of it. So, which the weird part is he decommitted from Arkansas, and I talked to him for a little bit. He loves Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, I think if Oklahoma pressed just right, he would commit. He is a freak. I mean, I've said that multiple times, but he really is. super twitchy, long, rangy, safety, smart kid, football IQ out of this world. Like, he can do everything on the field that you want done. Like, that's who this guy is. And he loves to hit. The issue is, again, you got Matai Tagawai, and you've got Sel Reyes out of DeSoto. You've got Marion Robinson out of Little Rock, Arkansas. And then Jonah Williams, a 5-star out of Galveston Ball High School. So there's a line of players that everybody's kind of waiting to see what they're going to do. But Brandon Hall just is kind of lining them up and knocking them down. I think Oklahoma leads big time for Jonah Williams right now. I think Oklahoma leads big time for Amari Robinson. And Amari Robinson supposedly will be back in March, most likely for the March 9th Future Freaks Day. There's other big names that are supposed to be there. Obviously, I think Trenton Wilson's supposed to be there that day as well, right?
Trent Wilson is visiting that day, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of big names going to be on campus that day. That's the day. If I'm Oklahoma fans, that's the date I circle, March 9th, because I do think there will be some news coming out of that day. I do. Maybe 2, maybe 3. And that's not an exaggeration, because that's, enough down the line that these guys have taken multiple junior day visits, and Oklahoma can now make that press, because the next step after that junior day is the spring game and then official visits. Like, you're starting to get in that range, Parker, where it's go time. And with Oklahoma only having 11, 12, 13 more spots, things are going to go like this for them, because they can sit there and legitimately look a recruit in the eye and be telling the truth and saying, if you don't commit now, you're going to regret it, because that spot's not going to be there in 2 months when you try to come back. Like, that is a legit play that they can have now. They can be aggressive. This is the first cycle Oklahoma comes into spring and can be aggressive like the Alabamas of the world and Georgia of the world have been able to do for years. You have the number 4 class in the country. You're recruiting at a level that Lincoln Riley had wet dreams of doing. Yeah, I said it. And it's true. Look at what Venables has done the past 3 cycles. 8, 6, 6. Not bad. He's been 8-4 and 20 in the transfer portal as well. Again, not bad. You combine that, you're top 10 in both when you combine both. Once again. So Lincoln Riley wasn't able to do that type of stuff. He was, one year he would be 8, the next year he'd be like 13. Right? Like, there wasn't a lot of consistency with how recruiting was done under that regime. So the Oklahoma gets to come into this, and they don't have to play, that passive aggressive, let them go take visits, do all that. You can put your foot down and say, dude, if you walk out of here uncommitted, there's a chance that you are not going to be a Sooner. And you said that that's what you want, then just commit. Save your spot. No, you can't go take other visits. But you said you wanted to be a Sooner. Why don't you just get it over with? And that's something Oklahoma can do right now. When's the last time that they were able to pull that? Back when Stoops was around in 2017, and they had all those in-state kids ironically committed to him. Took up a lot of space, and then they were able to go land arguably the greatest class in Sooners history as far as NFL talent goes. By the way, have you ever looked at that? That 2017 class. Chef's kiss. Well done.
Yeah, it's
Stu.
pretty solid. It's pretty deep.
He went out on that was his last class, and he went out freaking like, wow. Marquise Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Creed Humphreys, Who all was in that class? That's just
Well, Trey Brown and Trey Norwood are in the
yeah.
NFL.
Kenneth Murray,
Kenneth
K9.
Murray. Yep. Um, gosh, who else? There were some guys that were like further on down the class, like 3-star dudes that really panned out.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up real quick.
I guess
This is a fun
Kennedy
time.
Brooks hasn't made it to the league, but obviously he had an
He's a real
exceptional
estate
career at
guy. Yeah.
Oklahoma.
In Norman.
Yeah.
Here, I'm pulling it up real quick.
Brian Asamoah was 2018.
Yeah, he was 2018. All right, and it was the number 8 class in the country. Here we go. NFL guys. Let's do it. Trey Brown, Tyrese Robinson, Creed Humphreys, Grant Calcaterra, CeeDee Lamb, Isaiah Thomas, Trey Norwood, Trey Sermon, Marquise Hayes, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, Adrian Ely, um, Kenneth Murray. That's a stupid class, dude. That is a hit. That is a hit rate right there, man. You're batting about 70%, 65. Not bad.
And yet you didn't even play for a national championship. And they would have if Stoops had been the coach in 2017. I'll stand by that take. But
you're probably correct. I want to say 2018 was phenomenal as well. Jalen Redmond, Ronnie Perkins. Oh my gosh.
Asamoah was in that class. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Asamoah,
Nick Benito was in that
Nick
class.
Benito, Jordan Kelly, Delarian Turner Yell, Braden Willis. Again, back to back classes. That's why they were so good for so long. Those two classes kind of carried Oklahoma for a while. 2019 did too, but it went boom, boom, boom. 3 straight classes. And Riley kind of piggybacked off of the culture through the first 3 classes that Stoops built. And after the 2020 season, it just kind of, you could see it happening in 2020, but we've digressed. Anyways, let's talk about some team stuff before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
Off-season stuff. Look, everybody wants to say, well, what about the bad news that's happening? If you get a source to just sit out and say, yeah, I'm good with you clamoring on publicly about bad news that's happening inside the program, that'll be the day. Because
there are always those few people that ask for bad news. Give us the bad news too. Why? Like,
well, the bad news is going to rear its head when you don't see those players out on the field. Then you can ask, is why are they not playing? But before that, why not let the kid try to redeem themselves in the offseason? Like you don't know what could happen that week. Like, you ask a source like who's standing out, they're usually going to go off of the last 10 days that they've seen, right? What if a family member died of one of those players and that source didn't know that, but that player has had just an awful time in the weight room or in 7-on-7?
well,
Or
and with how quickly
like, come on,
fans
man.
form preconceived notions about players too. Like, I mean, shoot, Caden Helms has the always injured tag after sustaining one knee injury in the offseason. And now he can't seem to shake the stigma with some of these fans being the guy that's always laid up hurt. And so, again, like, fans are so quick to form opinions of what players are or can be or will be that the second you give them something negative to cling to about a particular player, it's really tough to shake that.
No doubt. I mean, and there's some people that just they enjoy finding just being negative about things. So it is what it is. Look, some things that we've heard. Look, Jackson Arnold obviously has been exactly what you expect out of your leader, right? Like he took that game in the Alamo Bowl to heart. He's not only being a leader in the strength and conditioning and the workouts, right? They haven't really done a lot of 7-on-7. It's been a lot of walkthroughs right now, but everybody that I've talked to said he has been just a film junkie. He's been working extra, getting in work with trainers outside of, just practices and working diligently to tighten up some structural things in his throws. He's doing a lot of things that you want your leader to do. He's leading by example. He's being more vocal. He's actually taking that step up and taking the ownership of, look, if somebody screws up, he's taking ownership of it. And I think that is the classic telltale signs of this guy is going to be something, you know, maybe in 24, but particularly in 25, you think he's going to have just an absurd year. Look, Brendan Zerbrug, if you want the negative part of it, Brendan Zerbrug needs more development. He's come in.
But
It's
we kind of
been,
knew that.
yeah, and we knew that. Exactly. That's what I was about to get to. But we knew that. We knew he was going to be behind Hawkins and Casey Thompson and Jackson Arnold. Like, we knew that was going to be the issue. That's not a surprise. He isn't as refined as those. He's an athlete playing quarterback right now. But the one thing I can tell you about him is he's smart and he works hard. Everybody said that. They said he is what he is right now. But 2 years from now, he has a chance to be that guy. On the same token, Michael Hawkins, elite arm, elite speed. He's a little wiry sometimes in the pocket, they said, a little, happy feet when it comes to some of the mechanical things that he does. But they said he is diligently working on that. And the second he can get just something so easy tightened up, and if he can start to understand the offense and get the mental aspect of it down, there's some people that said there's a world that guy has a package or two moving into the season because he's just such a good athlete that he's going to be hard to keep off the field. So just keep that in mind when it comes to Michael Hawkins. Casey Thompson rehabbing. He has taught these guys already in the last 2 weeks a lot of simple things of breaking down film, watching film, doing the right things. Jake Sexton, he stood out. Garen Hatchett is a name that he hasn't done anything, but the expectation for him, his leadership ability, just his experience, not only is the staff looking forward to it, the players are looking forward to it. Jaden Jackson, David Stone. Shocker, 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 right? Jaden Jackson was a superstar in the bowl practices. Everybody's talked him up. People that are outside the program that got to watch the bowl practices said, that's the dude. That guy can ball. He's going to play this year. He needs to add a little bit more weight, strength to be able to fight off some of the centers and guards in the SEC, obviously, but there's some expectation for him to be really good. And then obviously David Stone is going to be in the rotation. He showed up and things have started to rock with him. Like he is moving, and nobody's shocked with that statement. Like you say that and everyone's like, okay, yeah, that's not groundbreaking. No, it's not. It's not groundbreaking, but it's good to hear that he's living up to the expectations early on. He's just got to keep doing it. Gentry Williams has been rehabbing his shoulder. I've been told that the flu bug has been going through the team a little bit. So there's been some guys in and out. Transferred Des Malone out of San Diego State. He's looked really good. Jacoby Johnson. There's a lot of people that hope that he ends up playing this year because they said his speed, his height, his physicality, there's nobody like him in that cornerback room. And they said if he can figure it out, if he can just tighten up his technique, become even more of a worker than he already is. He's a hard worker, but they said even more of a worker. They said that he's going to play, and he's going to play quite a bit this year. And I quote, if there's anybody that fits the SEC, it's Jacoby Johnson. I thought that was an interesting quote. And then real quickly, here's a shocker. The sub 4-4 guys, or the 4-4 and below guys, right? Brennan Thompson, Gavin Sawchuk, Peyton Bowen, Billy Bowman. We shot.
You don't say.
You don't say. And then the one I want to talk about, we got a lot more notes on this. I just really just skimmed through my team notes on OU Insider. Guys, if you want to go, this is the type of stuff we talk about on OU Insider all the time. Like, I've got this long list of VIP team notes that there's about 15 more players talked about on OU Insider right now. Some of the stuff that sources are talking about, they need to work on. They're doing this, they're doing that. This person's going to play. This person needs to do a little bit more. All that's on OU Insider VIP. I have team notes up right now covering all of that, both sides of the ball, defensive line, linebacker, all of it. It's covered. It's covered. So you're missing out if you're not there. Eric McCarty, though, he's coming back with some ferocity, man. Dude ran a 4.15, something to that extent, in the shuttle drill. How about that? ACL tear, hamstring issues last year. 6'1", 200-something pound safety. Dude can move. And there's some people that think he's going to get in the rotation this year if he keeps it up. So keep that name filed away. Eric McCarty. People forget he was a part of that class. He's a good one. He was a very underrated player. So, all right, Parker. I think that'll do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. Again, if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe. We've got a lot more content coming. We're in talks to try to add some more content, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, there's a lot coming here on this YouTube channel. Off-season basketball, football, baseball, softball, spring, football, all of it right here. Recruiting. Everything's going to be right here. We're going to have special guests. We're going to do all kinds of stuff for you guys right here. Subscribe. Go to OU Insider VIP, $9.99 a month. $99.95 will get you the whole year, get you all the way up to this point in 2025 if you sign up right now. It's worth it. That team stuff I just skimmed over, there is, like I just said, just crazy amounts of info on OU Insider. Crazy amounts of VIP notes on OU Insider as far as recruiting goes. A whole list of visitors. We covered like 3-4 visitors of like 15, 20 plus that are going to be there this weekend. All that on OU Insider VIP. Parker's going to have Linkon Cure notes tomorrow. I'm going to have CJ Nixon notes and more. There's so much going on. I'm actually working on a class prediction. So I'm going to have some of that coming over the next, if not Monday, Tuesday of next week, I'll have it up hopefully by then. But working on all that, also trying to get you all notes as the players come into town. We're going to have all that for you. This obviously the February 3rd Junior Day. We're going to have all that for you. And we're going to have how it went, who did what, is there news potentially coming, all that on OU Insider VFP. Again, $9.95 a month, $99.95 if you want to do the whole year. All right. Thank you guys so much for doing this, watching this, listening to this, whatever, however you do it. Thank you. We do this because of you. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. From Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed night.